Hello and welcome to another edition of Tutorial Tuesday. This will be the second tutorial for Excel from Microsoft as part of their Office 2019 suite. I'd like to go over some of the most useful features and tools of Excel that I didn't get a chance to talk about in the first video. Let's get started. With Excel open, I'd like you to click on Blank Workbook. After you double click it, it will open up a new blank spreadsheet. The first tool I'd like to talk about is Autofill. The Autofill tool will automatically fill in a series of cells based on the information that's in one cell that you select. Let's go over some examples. Let's start by clicking inside cell A1, type in the number 5 and enter. And if you highlight that cell again, you'll notice that whenever you highlight to the bottom right, you'll get the plus sign icon. And you can then drag down. By default, this will copy what you have in that cell. If you click on the box for autofill options, you can choose Fill Series, which is what we'll be working with this time. And you can tell that it goes up by 1 from 5 to 6. If, however, I were to put in the number 10, you could then highlight both cells, A1 and A2, and then do the same thing where you drag down, and it will follow the pattern by increasing each cell by 5. Let's go ahead and test that out by dragging it down some more. This also works when you go across the rows instead of down the columns. For instance, you can put in 10 and B1, highlight A1 and B1, and then drag over to the right. It will do the same thing. Let me take this information out and let's try this with the names of the months. In this case, you don't have to fill in more than one in order to figure out the pattern. It just knows that the next month is February, obviously. Put your cursor in the bottom right corner until it changes to the plus icon. Click and drag down, and you can get a little preview of what's going to happen. And you'll see that it fills it in. And when you go to the right, the same thing. Let's try something else. In order to take everything out quickly, I'm holding down Control plus the letter A on the keyboard, and then hitting Delete key. In cell A1, I'll type in Name 1. When you click, drag down, it will fill in the names in sequential order, as well as to the right. Now let's try the days of the week. Repeats as it should at the start of the new week. You get some options when you click on the Autofill Options button. You can choose days, or weekdays. And it will take out Saturday and Sunday. I'll take this information out and try something else. Let's see what happens whenever we put in a numerical date. So we'll say April the 1st, 2020. Fills in the dates as it should. Well, let's see if we get any options here. We have days, which is the same thing. Weekdays will change the dates. By month. And by year. Now let me go back to the month, and you can see that you get these pound signs in place. And what that means is that there's just not enough space for the information. So what you can do in this case is click on this arrow pointing to the bottom right section and double click where you get the line in the middle with the arrows pointing left and right, and that will automatically adjust the size for the width of the column automatically. You can also choose a pattern of dates. Instead of going day by day, you can go from week to week, but you have to tell it at least 2 entries. So we'll start with April the 1st, and then we can choose April the 8th. Ooh. If you highlight these and scroll down, it will then follow that pattern. If I wanted to try every other day, and use Autofill, it will continue that pattern as well. Now let's try this with a time. I'll start with 9 a.m. It will fill in hourly for me. If I choose a 3-hour difference, it will follow that pattern as well. You can also use Autofill for formulas. I'll throw in some numbers in columns A and B and add them together in column C. in cell C1, I will insert the formula. Remember to always start with an equal sign, and since we are adding, we will do the sum, open parentheses, for cells A1 through B1, and close the parentheses. With this total and this specific formula, I can now drag down to do the rest. And it will keep the same formula corresponding to that row. The next thing I'd like to talk about is how to copy a worksheet. If you have a sheet that is just the way you want it, and you don't want to worry with losing some information or misplacing it or mistyping it, but you still want to maybe tweak with it and play with it a little bit to see if you can get some different numbers, the easiest thing to do is to simply create a copy of the worksheet that you're working with. Down at the bottom where you see Sheet 1, you can simply right-click, choose Move or Copy. It will ask you where you want it to go to, and we are working with Book 1, so that will stay the same. And then where to place it in Book 1. If you want to put it before Sheet 1, which is the current one that we're working on, or move it to the end, and choose Create a Copy. Select OK, and we now have a copy of Sheet 1. You can then right-click it, choose Rename, and name it whatever you would like. Now I'd like to talk about how to use percentages. I'm going to click on the number 1 for this row, right click and hit Insert so that I can type in what these numbers mean up here. For column D, we'll say that this is a percent. When dealing with percentages, the easiest thing to do is to highlight all cells that will be a percent and make sure that you click on the percent symbol. And when you type in the number, it will automatically convert that into a percentage for you. I'm going to do the same thing for autofill that we did earlier. Highlight these and drag down. And then in this column, I will have our increased value. So we need to create a formula for this. Again, you start a formula with the equal sign, and I want to take our number that we had added before from the C column. So we'll say C2 and multiply that by the percent in D2. $1.5 is correct because 10% of 15 is 1.5. However, I want to see what 10% more of 15 would be. So we then need to change our formula to add our original value back. So 15 plus 10% equals 16.5. And then you can take your autofill option to drag it down to the rest of them to do the same thing. Now this formula isn't still where it should be because you need to not forget about the standard mathematical order of operations, or Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, as you probably remember them. So what I'm going to do now is put parentheses around the first part, which would be C2 times D2, which we then want to take that answer and add it back to the C2 again for our correct answer. It doesn't change what we already have there, but it's just more correct. So please keep your order of operations in mind as you're working. I hope that these tools and features that I just went over help you out as much as they have me over the years. Thanks for watching.